Welcome to the More For Me podcast by yours truly, Kat Necole. Thank you for tuning in today. Whether you are watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast platform, it is an absolute honor and a privilege to have you here with me today. And so to you, I say, what up, homie? What's going on? How's your week been? I hope that all is well. And for those things that are not, I pray that they soon would move towards the well side, but that you would be at peace and comforted by the love of God in and wherever you are. Thank you again for joining me. As always, I want to encourage you to take a moment, like right now. You can pause the video and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. Turn on your notifications for great reminders, but please feel free to like, comment, share, rate, and review. When you do those things, it helps other people find More For Me by Kat Necole. Why do more people need to find it? Glad you asked, because it allows for me to increase my reach and impact and let other people know this amazing message and the good news that God wants more for them. Like literally, he wants more for them in life, and they can begin the amazing journey towards that destination of more. So today, guys, we're doing things a little bit different, and you're going to see more of this. I had the privilege and the honor of interviewing Kelley. You're like, who's Kelley? Hang on, you'll figure out and learn who she is in a second. Kelley happens to be a fellow Detroiter, 313 all day, but she also went to the University of Michigan as well. And although we didn't go at the same time, we didn't attend at the same time, we were so fortunate for our paths to cross and for us to connect. And Kelley is an amazing young woman, and she's doing some phenomenal things. But more than what she's doing right now, she is just a phenomenal person. And as she walks out her journey towards the destination of more that God has for her, I knew that it would bless our homieship, the homie pod, the squad, the crew. It would bless us to hear from her and dig into her journey so that we can be exposed to what God is doing in and through her and just be encouraged as we journey towards the more that God has for us. So without further ado, check out my interview with Kelley. It was fun. It was amazing. And I know you're going to enjoy it. All right, now. Welcome to the More For Me podcast by Kat Necole. Today, as you can see, I am not by myself. Guys, this is the second opportunity that I have to share the studio with a guest. And today I have Kelley here to hang out with me. You guys know I'm not going to introduce her because I want her to share everything she wants to about herself with you guys. But today we have another More For Me journey, and Kelley's going to bless us with some great portions of her journey, as well as just some nuggets. And we're going to see and witness how God has been moving her towards the destination for more and what that looks like for her. So Kelley, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I want to say I love what you're doing with your podcast, the content that you're putting out there. And so I'm just excited to be able to be a part of it. So just me in a nutshell, again, my name is Kelley. I'm a growth strategist. And so I love working with ambitious Christian women who are ready to start, discover, and monetize their purpose projects. And so I've had the blessing to start an organization with my husband called the Hope Ambassadors. And through that, I've been able to connect with women who really are at a space where they know that God has put something inside of them and they just really need clarity around what that thing is so they can move forward to really embracing it and owning it and stepping fully into their kingdom assignment.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So as soon as you started talking and you said for women, I'm like, oh man, there's some male homies out here. So I'm sure that they can get some love too. So don't tune us out because she focuses on helping women. There's more for me. There's more for you. There's more for everybody. But I love that you say you work with your husband. Guys, you don't know this, but I will go ahead and put myself on blast and share that Kelley was so gracious as my husband and I got ready for this interview and kind of struggled a little bit getting the setup and everything together. But to be able to journey with and work alongside, especially in a kingdom mission with your spouse is pretty awesome. So I know you appreciate that as much as I do. So So glad to have you here today. And we're going to jump right in. And I'll let you have the mic back there and tell us a little bit about you. And feel free to start where you are now, if that's where you want to pick up, or if you want to take us back a little bit and give us a little, I guess, memory lane of what your journey has been. Go ahead.
Sure, sure. And yes, working with a spouse is an amazing growth opportunity. We'll say that. But yeah, no, I'll just start, from what I would say was like the catalyst, so to speak, of what the assignment is that God has me walking in today. And so this probably started back initially, maybe in 2013, when my husband and I were expecting our first child. And at the time, we weren't married. And we gave birth to our first child, and about a week or so after that, he went off to the police academy for 5 months. So I stayed with his parents. Once he got back, we got placed about an hour or so away from our family. So that was our first time kind of like getting our own space, moving out. When our son, and by that time I should also mention, we got married 2 weeks after our son was born. Once we had our son, things were going okay. We were kind of getting the feel for like being real adults. And when our son was about 8 months, we found out we were expecting again. So for, for about a year, we had managed to have 2 kids, get married, and moved about 2 times in the midst of like a 2-year period.
Wow.
And so, needless to say, things kind of came crashing down. We didn't really have any plans, any expectations when we got married. And things just kind of caught up to us. We had a really rocky start to our marriage. And some things happened that, weren't great. And we were almost about to be over. So in the midst of that, dealing with the hormones that come along with having children, the identity crisis that I was having by being thrust into these new roles as a wife and a mom, and really being let down by these things, by the expectations of these things. I think I had them kind of on a pedestal of what I thought they would be like, and once I received them, I was honestly let down by what came along with it.
And so, did you have an expectation to be a mom, and like you knew, like, I don't want to be a mom, I want to be a wife, and so those things were already expectations, or did motherhood even throw a curveball for you?
Absolutely. So I definitely knew that I was going. My husband and I, we dated for maybe like 6 years before we got married. We were college sweethearts,
Oh.
and so I definitely was like, yeah, like when, we need to get the ball rolling. And I always knew that kids would come along with it. But I never gotten to the point where I was like, how you get that maternal like clock click ticking and you're like, I just want to be a mom. I had never gotten to that point yet. I just knew that it was something that I wanted to do. And the way I always expected that playing out was me still working in my career, climbing the corporate ladder, me building that foundation first, then having kids, very like, systematic. And it didn't look anything like that. I ended up being a stay-at-home mom. I ended up, just getting thrust into everything all at one time.
Okay, so
And I really struggled with the fact that I never got into that space where I was like really excited and had an opportunity to look forward to motherhood. And I thought that was actually a handicap for me in motherhood.
That's good. That's good. Let's take a step back. And so you mentioned like that you thought that you would be fully into your career and working and kind of grooving as in the newness of being married, and then at some point you would have children. So tell us a little bit about your background in terms of maybe what you studied in school and either what path you were on or where you thought you were going to be in terms of your career.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So when I found out that we were expecting my son, I was actually just kind of rocking across the stage for my master's in urban planning and economic development. And so I had a really big heart. I'm from Detroit. And so my heart was to really participate in like the revitalization of our city, to work on economic development projects, community development. And so that's what I was excited about doing. I really wanted to get into a company that was going to allow me to help out with, different economic development projects. And so when I ended up moving away from the city, that I loved, And now I'm at home. And that was a decision that we made because it just didn't seem feasible once you start adding on 2 kids. Like the opportunity, I looked for different things, but it had to be like the right opportunity for me to really justify spending most of my income for the opportunity to work. You know what I mean? Like, and so that's how I kind of initially fell into entrepreneurship because I had someone that I was working with before as their fundraising assistant. And what I did was I started like a virtual assistant business. And I didn't even really know that that's what it was called. I just reached back out to this person and turned them into my client. And I was like, hey, I can manage your business while I'm here. I'll come to your office a couple times a week. And that was the beginning of like, okay, I can do this. There's people out there who want people to work for them, but they aren't ready to bring on a full-time team member.
That's good. That's so good. So, despite kind of sharing, and I know we didn't go into all the details. So, you have this beautiful smile. So it kind of seems lighter, but I don't want to let that take away from like, no, really, like there was a lot going on in terms of, like you said, disappointment, a struggle with identity, some of the decisions that you guys were having to make. And when what you just said, like, hey, this is where entrepreneurship came in, but that even in all those things that you were struggling with, whether it was all happening at the same time or they were kind of giving you some space in between, that's normally not how life works. So I'm pretty sure you were handling multiple things, issues and concerns at the same time, but that you still found an opportunity. And, that's largely what More For Me is about, is that, hey, we can get better in everything, and everything really presents us an opportunity for that. In the moment, maybe not. Sometimes it really is that hindsight that you have to look back and say, oh, wow, look at this. Other times, though, you can legitimately see and experience the growth and appreciate that opportunity to kind of shift and become a better version of yourself, if you will. So that's pretty dope that you kind of seize that opportunity. What made you think about or kind of lock in on, hey, I'm going to look for an entrepreneurship opportunity?
Yeah, so a big part of it was the fact that while I was at home, and I love that show, it's called There's More For Me, I had this feeling like there has to be more than this. My husband, he had a very demanding job, and I was home with the littles. And I ended up kind of starting to play around with like getting more into self-care and trying to take care of myself a little bit better. And through that, that's how I actually started my first online business, which was a subscription box service for moms. It was like a self-care company. And I was like, okay, I started seeing the possibilities that I can not only be home and have this experience being home with the kiddos, but I can actually earn an income and I can actually start something that is, for me, some of the things that I was looking for in my career. But what I would say is when I was still kind of going through that struggle period, before I really began to connect back with God, I was still seeking validation from those things in the same way that I was seeking validation from having a career, moving up the corporate ladder. And so with that misplacement of where my validation was coming from, that struggle still persisted, even though on the outside, I was looking like I was, I had it all together. We had just bought our first house. Oh, you guys have 2 kids, you're starting your business. Like things look like they're going along. And I really was at like the worst place I've been like ever been in my life.
So, so one of these themes that I've been noticing kind of in life in general, and let me not go all the way down the rabbit trail that just popped in my mind. But one of the things that I noticed, and is a theme for sure, is when more looks like less. When it looks like more, but it really is less. And it looks like more, right? So that's a circular reference. Thanks, Excel. But there are times like what you just said is like, on the outside, the exterior, there was more. We had more. So for everybody else, they're like, like you doing it. But you really did not have more. It was really less. And then as you shift for other people's perspective where, things change and you lose things, jobs change and so on. So you continue to go through your journey and this process that you have to partake in. And for other people on the outside, it may then look like less. Like, how is this more? Like if I go from 5 to 2, simple math tells me I have less. but in reality, you have more. So I love that you said that, because I definitely, I know it's a theme for me in my life, that there are moments when it's like, I like physically, tangibly, hands on, this is less. Like, this looks like less. But in reality, once I took a different perspective and looked through a godly lens, that I could see the more in that decrease. So I'm glad you shared that. That's so good. What about tell us a little bit more about your shift in your journey and that progress from the struggle to the more that you're at today, and we'll dig into your more today.
Yeah, for sure. So at one point, I remember walking with my son. He was maybe like 18 months old. We were getting mail. And I just had this moment like, God, like, why have you forsaken me? Like, this is not the way things are supposed to go. And I felt like he literally was like, no, why have you forsaken me? And so what I realized is that I had placed all these things on a pedestal, and I was looking for validation from my marriage. I was looking for my husband to be like, not just make me happy or be content and enjoyable, but like, no, like the source of my happiness. So like when he's seeming like he's thriving and still maintaining a social life in the midst of all we got going on, I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, you're supposed to be like in the trenches with me. You know what I mean? Toddlers are not, I'm just gonna be, in my experience, are not a great source of validation. Like, they don't validate you like a manager or a boss. They're not like, okay, you're doing really great with this. Our company can't thrive without you. Like, they're like throwing stuff on the floor. Like, at times I would take it personally because I'm like, are you guys really trying to break me? And they're 2 and 3, right? But like my head was like in such a space where like my self-worth was extremely low, which I'm typically a pretty confident person. But I felt like, Lord, I am failing at this motherhood thing. Maybe it's because I did this, and I wasn't ready. Maybe I'm missing a gene, like a mom gene that like other moms have, where they're excited and they're like loving this. And, it got to the point where I really hit a rock bottom, and my self-worth was so down that I believed that my family was going to be better off without me. I believed that my husband would maybe find somebody who like loved kids and was like a Mary Poppins type of person. And, that my kids, they were too little. They wouldn't remember me anyway. And that's when thoughts started coming in of like, you don't really need to be here. And in fact, people would probably be better off if you weren't.
Yeah.
And I think that was like the pivotal, like rock bottom moment where those thoughts were persisting over a period of time. And it wasn't until I saw stories of this playing out tragically that I was like, oh, wait, I may need to get some help for this. This may not be something I can manage on my own.
That's good. That's good. And the interesting thing, like, even though I was laughing when you were talking about toddlers, like, it wasn't laughter because I'm laughing at you. I'm laughing with you.
No.
you know how, I definitely understand. And although our kids are 6 and 3, so they have 3 years apart, but like solo, my son alone, I would sometimes sit there and look at that joker like, you woke up to take me out. Is this like legit? I think you're against me. You cannot be from me. Like, you trying to take me out, and you're doing a pretty good job. So definitely understanding the struggle. And
I know that God has done a work in me now, because my oldest ones are 6, almost 7 and 5. And I have a toddler now. And I'm like, oh, I forgot what this was like. I forgot how y'all roll.
Oh, I forgot this is your world. How can I help you? Let me know how I can facilitate your life better. No, that's so good. But and even in hearing that, and both of us at this point in time sharing kind of in that moment of how this happened in our motherhood journey. One of the things I like about being able to converse with people like you and even share my story is helping others realize that they're not alone. It doesn't matter what credentials you have, where you come from. Like, we all go through some type of struggle. And if we're brave and bold enough to share, kind of like just like you're doing right now, that there's a connection point to know that there's nothing new under the sun. Literally, it says it in the Bible. It's real. There's nothing new. But I too struggled with. I used to tell people that I was basically kind of dancing like around like postpartum depression for sure. I think I got really, really close to it, but there was one friend, like it was literally one conversation, and it kind of pulled me back from that edge. And then I started to pay more attention to myself and kind of try to figure out like what is this going on in this season. But identity issues, to have independent, like you're just doing it. You're graduating with your master's. Like you had plans, 313 all day, Detroit love right here. Like I'm going back, I'm improving my city, like take over. It's going down. And then for all of that to shift, I can only imagine like the different levels of struggles, and then for yours to reach a different level. And I thank God that you kind of hit that wall to kind of wake you up to say, hey, I need to do something different, and I need some help with this. So that's an amazing testimony and portion of your journey for sure to celebrate that you're even here. And thriving, not just here, right? When a child of God, you do more than survive. We thrive.
Glory to God.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So you got the help that you needed, and things started to turn around. You're a growth strategist, right? Is what you do. Yeah. Tell us more about the growth that you saw during those struggles, right? So you talk about the struggles, and mostly people just say like, I made it through, like I'm here. But let's dig into a little bit more. Like, tell us how you grew, like tangible ways, maybe just a couple examples. I don't want you to present your whole memoir. We'll buy that later, but tell us a little more.
Yes. No, so the growth, like you said, I did seek help, and that really just got me to a space of like, okay, now I need to implement and figure out what it is I need to do, because the help that I'm getting is like temporary. Like I need to be able to be sustainable and thrive, like you said. And so really what that process looked like, if I really condense it down, is what I call like a purpose revival. And that's something that I offer to my community. My online community is called the Purpose Revival for Ambitious Christian Women. And what it did, going through this process, really just breathed life back into my purpose, and it totally reformed it. And so before, it was about, accolades, if I'm honest. It was about people telling me that I did a good job, that I was needed, that I was valued. And the first part of that really was getting clear on my kingdom identity, really getting clear on the gifts and talents that God had placed inside of me. Seeking God first. So being able to like really like quiet myself and just sit before him and take away my expectations again, because I can come to him with some pretty amazing plans that I think are dope. But as I had seen in the past, when I do them on my own, they're disappointing. And so I had to really lay those things down to the side and ask God, like, what is it that you are putting me here for? Whatever you place inside me, how do I use these things? And when I was able to do that, I was able to start using them, not just to build a business, but I was able to even use them within my home. I was able to say like, no, the way God created me is important to my husband. It's an important piece for my kids. It doesn't matter if I'm like a soccer mom, or I have like a million calendars, or I'm, baking cakes or whatever. Yeah. Or if I'm just the mom that's like going to push you. Like if you fall, I'm going to be like, let's get back up and keep going. However it was that he created me was that way for a purpose. I had to really get clear on that kingdom identity first. Next, I had to figure out what mattered most. And so I had to, and a lot of times we say things matter to us, but when we really look at where we're spending our time, our money, our energy, that's what actually matters. That's where we're actually placing our value. And so I could say, well, what matters to me is, my children knowing that I love them, or, my husband feeling supported, or me reaching other people and helping them fulfill, get their businesses off the ground, or see their visions. But if I wasn't really placing my time, energy, and my resources into that, then how was I actually moving that forward? So when I had to really sit down and say, all right, Lord, in this particular season where you have me, I can't do all the things. I can't build subscription boxes, nurse until 2 a.m. and, try to work on people's, back end of their businesses. Like, you have to let me know what is it that matters most right now. And when I was clear on that, the third thing I had to do was really start eliminating the fluff. And this is a really challenging part for a lot of women, especially when we're connected to so many different roles. When we are supportive, when a friend comes to us and they have a vision that's going on, and now we want to get behind their vision. And it's really hard for us to sometimes to really sink into what the assignment is that God has placed in us, and give ourselves permission to really commit to that and eliminate things that's not moving us closer to that. The fourth is something my husband and I, we call pain to gain. And that's really identifying where we're healing from. And so all that trauma
Mm.
and things that, we went through in our marriage, that I went through with an identity around being a mom, um, really sitting that for a minute and realizing that there's somebody else out there that's experiencing that too. And so, like you just mentioned, like literally when I share things like this or share this story, I have to think in my head that there's one person out there who can hear this and say, like, okay, I'm going to push through. I'm going to persist. I'm going to, connect back to God. Like, this is not the end. And that's really what pushes me to be able to go ahead and share some of those things that are really personal and that you want to be like, okay, thank you, Jesus. Like
But it's
that was
behind
over.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like what's the next thing? But that's a big part of that as believers is really using our testimony to encourage other people. And that's really what the gain is in there, that you gain the opportunity to connect with other people and help them see through some of the roadblocks and things that you already went through. And so, and then finally, just really connecting with your kingdom assignment. And so I think a lot of times we skip to that. We skip to, all right, God, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what do you want me to do? We want to do. And, until you really know who you are, till you really um, discover what it is that matters and what's most important to God, redefine success from God's lens and not your own. I think that's where some of that more less is more comes from, is because our idea of success always involves access. You know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean? Where God's definition of success is usually a lot more minimal. It's like a more minimalist approach to things. And so sometimes it's hard to start taking those things off, especially when we've held them so close to us. But in doing that, we really are able to step into our kingdom assignment and really find the things that we were looking for, ironically, by being in the place where God really presented us to be.
That's good. That's so good. I'm taking notes here. Always a student looking to learn and just soaking it all in. When you said that more is access, that really, and we know biblically that everything in the world, God inverts that thing, right? Same thing,
Yes.
like, right? Servant leadership. Jesus came, he came to serve. He's the greatest leader, but he was like, I am going to serve. Right. So that just flipped the whole world on its head. But the fact that more is excess and less is really more is that's that paradigm where God, like you said, it's a more of a minimalistic perspective, but that you don't necessarily, and not to say, because, sometimes people will take it a little bit too far. You're like, well, then don't have anything. No, it's not poverty that you can't have.
Yeah.
But mostly it sometimes manifests itself in the natural and physical in terms of actual possessions and things or stuff.
Mhm.
But for the most part, we start with the inside and your heart and so on, and what that is attaching to, right? So I didn't need all this stuff, like you said, in order to be validated or to have a sense of purpose. Like, I have an identity and a purpose, and it's in God, in one, not in many things, right? All that other stuff is insignificant. So it really is that boiling it down to what's important. I love those steps. Nice. You got 5.
Yes.
That's one of my numbers right there. 5.
Yes.
So you said that the first thing was identifying your identity in God, solidifying that, like who you are in God. And then what matters most, figuring that out, eliminating the fluff in your life. 4, pain to gain, seeing the value that your healing has brought about, so you can share your testimony. And then 5, connecting with your kingdom assignment. And let's not lose sight here, homies, that we can't start at the assignment, right? So steps 1 through 4 lead you to step 5. That's why they're called steps. But it's literally leading you to step 5, and that you have to be willing to do the work in advance, so that when you are connected to your assignment, you're equipped for it. You've been exposed, you've been empowered, and now you're equipped. If we start at step 5, then there's failure, there's disappointment, because we haven't put in the work. We haven't journeyed towards the more. We just want to start at more. Like, no. You have to journey. That's why we're journeying together. We're sharing your story here. This is a part to understand and be exposed to your story, so that we understand that it's a process for everybody. I love that. That's tremendous growth, I would say. And I know that there's a lot more if we dig into the details in terms of what exactly each of those steps kind of brought about for you in terms of your actual growth during the struggle in your life. And I will be foolish to think that you have arrived. I love to say that more is unique for each individual, and you never really reach more. You just continue to journey towards more, right? So at one point in your life, you see more as being this one thing, but you have to keep going. You can't just reach there and be like, I'm a good mom now. All right, we can park the car. No more journey. No. You keep on pressing. You can't get complacent. Always content, but never complacent. So tell us more about, every time I say more now, kind of tickles me, but tell us more about where you're going. Where's your more? A little bit more on it. Now I'm just going to keep saying more. Give us a little bit more on what you are doing present day, and then kind of if you have a next project or even further down the line, like, hey, I'm looking way ahead and I know this is where God is taking me. I love for the homies to hear about that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like God is just always revealing, more and more each day. And I think, like you just mentioned when you said, being content and not complacent, like get into a space of true contentment in your journey and where you are on that, I think is huge. And so, if you talk about like what I foresee in the future, digging deeper into really helping people step into their kingdom assignments and what that looks like, for me, is helping them, one, to get clarity about what that even is. But two, and a huge part of it, because we can have the strategies and we can get the tips and the things like that. But a huge part of that is really helping them to embrace it, embrace what their assignment is, embrace their message in a way that allows them to confidently and boldly put it out there. Share it with people, share it, whether that's through their platforms that they're building, the audiences, or even, within their families or people that they come in contact with, to really own who they are in Christ. And then through that, thoroughly get into a space where they can connect with their audience and know exactly what they need, so they can provide a transformation for them. So once they're going through this process and they're ready to serve other people, what is it that the people that they're called to serve, what do they need? How can they create transformative products or services that really help take them to the next level in what they're trying to achieve?
So I hear you saying, you're saying this thing is growing. That's what you're saying. Expand that reach and that impact. I hear you. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think as believers, that's all we can really do is just try to find the people that we're called, to impact and to be a part of their lives. And then there's a ripple, you know what I mean? And then they go out and they do things, and then they go out. And I'm just so blessed for the people who have shared their story and their testimonies. And that was the way that I was able to identify that I needed to get help when I was in that area. And then the people around me who made me feel confident enough to go ahead and get that help.
That's good. That's good. So because you are a growth strategist, I would be remiss if I didn't allow for you to bless the homies with growth strategy. So we know, like, literally, there is growth in the struggle. There are opportunities for growth even in the struggle, and also in the good times, right? Some people are like, hey, it's good. Nothing can get better. There's always room for growth, period.
Oh, yeah.
Always room for growth. But definitely in terms of struggle, give us a few things to think about, to ponder over going forward, whether or not the homies are in a present day struggle, or it's for the struggle to come, or the struggle of a friend. We live in community and we do life together as God intended. So what do you have for us in terms of tangible and practical things that we can apply to growing in the struggle, and even maybe trying to appreciate that before the struggle is over?
Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to say is connecting with God. And I'm going to speak on that for a second, because I know that as soon as I say that, somebody out there is going to be like, okay. And the reason why I know that is because when I point to the moments of growth in my life and when I felt like I needed to connect with God, I had resistance, internal resistance to really sitting down and connecting with God. When we talked about my struggles within like my marriage and my motherhood in the beginning, I knew I needed to connect with God. There was times where my husband, we would literally sit at the table and he would just sit there and read the word to me because while I was just sobbing because I was so disconnected and so, broken that I wasn't able to do that for myself. He was essentially trying to feed me spiritually because
Yeah.
I was just so depleted. And it wasn't until again I took measures to get to like a good homeostasis where I was like, okay, all right, I need to connect with God because that's the only reason I'm going to be able to be sufficient and not have to rely on these things. But even if we track back to after I had my our last child, I went through a whole year of trying to like get back started, during that point. And I kept trying it on my own. I kept trying to work myself up. I knew what I needed to do. I had a pretty successful business. And so I really just needed to just relaunch that business.
Yeah.
But I had so much resistance to it. And I knew I needed to sit down and connect with God. But I felt resistance to doing that. I'm like, I can't just sit down. Like, where's that time going to come from? And all right, God, well, I'm saying my prayers, I'm doing my devotionals. And it wasn't until I really was like, okay, I need to really like lay everything down and just commit to him with no expectation of like getting something from it. And the reason why I know people, when I first said that, were probably like, okay, it's because I used to do that. Like when these 6 and 7 figure Christian entrepreneurs would be like, I sat down and God gave me a business strategy. And like, I'd be like, all right, sis, because like I sat down with God too, and He didn't give me a 7-figure business idea. Like, so you missing some steps here. You're not telling me everything. And so I started trying to look for all the steps. I invested in coaches after coaches. Like I've spent thousands of dollars in coaching programs to get the steps. But it wasn't until I really was able to connect with God, because every time I would get into those programs, I was running from the thing that He had actually told me to do. When I sat back and looked through all my notebooks, I saw that this purpose revival had been in my notebook since 2017.
Come on.
I had been creating this thing over and over again. Every time I had an opportunity to invest and to move forward, I went back to the safe route, which was, building the business. And so connecting with God is a crucial step that you can't overlook. And I would say with that, just start with simplicity. Literally just start with turn on some worship music and just sitting there before him. Doing it in the shower even. While you're walking, just these normal steps. And what I will add as well as that, which was really helpful to me and I didn't mention, is learning about God's identity and God's character. That was huge for me because I didn't realize that I was having some challenges really connecting with God. Because I was maybe seeing him through the lens of like how you would see like an earthly father or these people
Yep.
around me who had disappointed me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't until I really connected with like, oh my goodness, like he loves me, like he is my father, like he wants to show me these things. And he has been with me through all these things. And when I would go through these things and I would just curl up and I felt like his presence around me, just,
Yeah.
keeping me. And
Yeah.
so until you can really get that level of connection with God, the other things are really going to be void. And so I would say really start with that. And when God does reveal that to you, really commit to executing in that area. And that, that may start with identifying the resources that you have available to do that execution.
That's so good. That's so good. That's so good. Man, you guys better take these growth strategy nuggets. It's I say it often that, hey, here's something that's simple. It's like, what's the solution? Oh, it's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. Even as you said, like, I knew it and then I rejected it and kind of ran from it, moonwalk out of here. But that it can be so simple if we embrace it. That's so good. And even the understanding God's identity, even in the discovery of yourself, is very important as well, because we're made in his image, right?
Yes.
And so if I begin to believe about my creator, whose image I'm made in, then it kind of clicks a little bit easier to believe some of that stuff about myself. And definitely to remove that he is a father. He's the father, right? So he's not like my earthly father. He's not like other men on the earth. He's not like anybody else that I may have experienced, whether it's hurt, rejection, pain, like whatever sin that I've experienced from man, that's not what you're receiving from him. And I think we all too often attribute to God characteristics of man. And then it becomes a wall that you have to figure out how to get over, get through, tear down, so that you can have your breakthrough, get your car repaired, and get back on the road, journeying towards that destination that He has for each and every one of us. Kelley, this has been amazing, yo. So exciting. I'm so glad that we were able to share your journey, to be blessed by your insight and your wisdom, and even learn about what it is that you're doing for the kingdom. Now, my 313 is like, do you have in your back pocket this Detroit development and revitalization? Do you think that's still something in your heart? This is just a selfish question as a fellow Detroiter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of my visions is to really get into real estate redevelopment, and so to be able to get to the position where we're buying property and able to fix it up so that we can bless other people.
That's so good. There's so many I believe people out there, but for sure in my circle, so many fellow Detroiters that I know, and all of us have this common theme and this thread of a heartbeat for Detroit. And that even though most of us don't live there anymore, that we still see our dollars going back there, and our hearts and minds are generally churning about a way to impact the city and help it to continue to be as great as it is, but even greater for sure. So that was just my selfish nugget. But I definitely want to thank you for joining, for your grace with Team Thompson's technical issues at the top of the interview. But this has been a huge blessing. Don't let us end, though, without you sharing how people can connect with you, because you are a growth strategist. You are changing the world and influencing, impacting the kingdom. So I definitely want the homies to be able to know how they can reach out to you, whether they want personal consultations, they don't know where to start, or they just want to plug in and hear more from Kelley. Please let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I mentioned before, I do have a community on Facebook called Purpose Revival for Ambitious Christian Women. And so I'm, very active over there. You can find me on Instagram at Kelley L McLean. If you do want to, schedule a time to talk and chat, you can do that at bit.ly/KLM connection call. And so those are probably the best ways to reach us. If you want to learn more about what we're doing with the Hope Ambassadors, you can follow us you can go to the hopeambassadors.com. And I do like a business training every Wednesday on Facebook, and that's on my Kelley L McLean page.
Hey guys, I've tuned in before. It's worth joining the group. it's worth jumping on that live. We're in Cali, so I normally have to catch it afterwards, but that replay still be just as fire. So it's definitely worth joining. I'll throw it in the show notes, so you don't have to rewind a bunch of times to try to get it down, but you'll just be able to find it there in the show notes so that you can connect with Kelley, show her some love, and bless her and let her bless you. So Kelley, thank you for joining us today. Guys, you know it. There is more for me. There is more for you. And that even happens in the struggle. There is growth and opportunity in the struggle. Kelley's testimony tells us that. And we just heard a snippet of it. But there's probably something in your present day that you've experienced, or you can look back and say, you know what? I am better after that struggle when I made it through. And you will make it through. So more for me, more for you. We just got to go ahead after that thing. So let's get it, guys. Y'all take care. So how did you guys like the episode? Did you enjoy it? I thought it was really good, and I enjoyed it myself. So honored that Kelley took the time out of her schedule, and Lord knows I took up a lot of her time today to hang out with us and bless us with some of her growth strategy. And Kelley is a growth strategist, to say the least. She's just not pouring out nuggets for us today and blessing us, but if this is an area that you need some assistance with, guys and gals, she and her husband work together. So there's opportunities, guys. Don't shy away from it just because she mentioned ladies being her focus. But there's opportunity for everybody to grow here. And you can connect with Kelley one-on-one. I'll drop all those nuggets that she provided us in the show notes so that you can connect with her on Facebook, Instagram, as well as through their website, and see what resources and tools that they have available for you guys to help you grow in your walk and head full steam ahead towards that destination of more. As always, I appreciate you guys tuning in with me today, hanging out until the end. And I'll see you again here next week, dropping on Tuesday, same time, same place. And listen at your leisure. But whatever you do, make sure you do listen and enjoy. Remember, God has more for me. He has more for you. Now let's get it. Take care.